Now part of the Darkcast Network. Welcome to Indie Podcasts with a Dark Side. On August 21st, 2025, 47-year-old Walter Goodman III called 911 from a mobile home in Oneida, Wisconsin, and reported that his 14-year-old daughter was weak, lethargic, and had been vomiting for days. Walter also said that she hadn't eaten in 4 or 5 days. When the dispatcher asked about her condition, Walter responded in a disturbingly detached way. Quote, "I don't know. She won't even talk. She's just laying there with her eyes open and all creepy." When first responders arrived, they found a teenager who was so small that one officer initially thought that she was only 6 or 7 years old. Even though she was 14, she weighed just 35 pounds and was described as being, quote, literally just skin and bones. So let me put this in perspective for you. The girl only weighed 5 pounds less than she had when she was 4 years old and 9 months. So 4 years and 9 months. She weighed 5 pounds less than then. Because at 4 years and 9 months, it was recorded that she had weighed 40 pounds, which was normal. Now at 14, she was 35 pounds. So just think about that. She was rushed to a hospital in Green Bay before being transferred to Children's Wisconsin near Milwaukee. Once doctors began examining her, they discovered that she was suffering from multi-organ dysfunction, including respiratory failure, cardiac dysfunction, acute hepatitis, pancreatitis, hypothermia, and untreated diabetes. She also had pressure sores on her body and a large bruise on her forehead. She was so weak that she couldn't turn on a sink faucet by herself and had to pull herself along the walls, furniture, and handles just to reach the bathroom. At first, she wasn't strong enough to even communicate normally, so she wrote notes to the nurses caring for her, saying things like, "I'm hungry, I need a snack, I can't breathe, I need to poop, can I watch TV?" When nurses told her that she would receive 3 meals a day, her eyes lit up. She immediately started talking about food she wanted to eat, like she wanted to eat pancakes, she wanted to eat tacos, she wanted to try M&Ms. But even after she was removed from the home and placed in a hospital, she was still afraid of what Walter would think about her eating. Quote, "My dad will be so mad. He doesn't like when I eat that much." Welcome, lambs. Welcome to Love and Murder, Heartbreak to Homicide, your weekly true crime podcast telling you cases of relationships that turn to murder. And when I say relationships, this could be parent-child, partners, friends, roommates, those kind of relationships. Today's case is a parent-child relationship because it's about a 14-year-old girl who spent nearly 5 years hidden inside a house with 4 adults, only to be discovered weighing just 35 pounds and barely clinging to life. And wait till you hear about the adults. Before we get into how all of this happened, don't forget to subscribe to Love and Murder on whatever platform you're currently listening on. But the best place to subscribe is through the Patreon, patreon.com/Love and Murder, where you can subscribe for free. But if you want more cases, more of my voice for whatever reason, then join the Lamb Fam by choosing any one of the paid tiers. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. As part of the Lamb Fam, you get exclusive bonus episodes that never make it onto the regular feed. Well, sometimes it does. Very, very, very rarely. You also get ad-free listening, intro-free listening, so you don't get this whole intro, you'll just get directly into the case, and so much more. For instance, if you finish this episode and you want to hear another episode of mine, you have a whole plethora of backlogs in the Patreon of bonus episodes, of full-length episodes, of after shows, patreon.com/Love and Murder. Now that we got the housekeeping out of the way, let's get back into this case of how this little girl ended up living inside a house that would later be called a house of horrors. The girl had been sent to live with Walter in 2020 after her biological mother was incarcerated. From that point forward, she lived in the Oneida mobile home with 4 other adults. Walter, her stepmother Melissa Goodman, Melissa's daughter Savanna LeFever, and Savanna's partner Kayla Stemler. During the 2020-2021 school year, the girl was enrolled in virtual school because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And after that school year ended, Walter claimed that she was being homeschooled. That effectively removed her from regular contact with teachers, school employees, and other adults who may have noticed what was happening to her. For the next 5 years, she was largely hidden from relatives, neighbors, doctors, and the rest of the community. To explain why no one else saw her, the adults told extended family members and neighbors that she was away on vacation or staying with other relatives or whatever other lies that they could think of. One neighbor, Pam Medina, said that she had no idea a child was even living in the trailer, although she regularly saw grocery deliveries arriving for 4 adults. While the adults reportedly had food delivered to the home and were all described as morbidly obese, the teenager was slowly starving inside. According to investigators, she spent most of the 1,940 days she lived there locked inside a bedroom. And if you want to see what these adults look like, part of being inside the Lamb Fam is that you do get case extras like pictures or videos of the trials if there are any. And very, very rarely are there no pictures. But I usually have pictures there. And you get that in the Patreon, but only in the Patreon app. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. So if you want to see what these adults look like, as opposed to what you hear me describing this child as, there are no pictures of the child. I'm not going to post that. But if you want to see what these adults look like as opposed to how I describe this child while they're sitting there stuffing their faces and a child is sitting there literally wasting away, then it'll be in the Patreon. At times, the child was forced to sleep on the bare floor without a mattress, wearing only underwear and socks. Why? What was the point? Walter watched her through a webcam installed inside the room, but the camera wasn't only used to watch her, it also served as the only way she was allowed to communicate with him. He also had rules to how she should talk to him. She was to look directly into the camera and then speak with him. Walter reportedly told a friend, quote, "If I could leave her somewhere in the woods, I'd leave her." And the friend did what with this news? He just laughed and that was it? He went about his business? A witness also claimed that Walter had once said, quote, "Well, I keep her locked up in her bedroom with a camera on her, and that's where she stays." And that friend did what with that information? According to the girl, Walter told her directly, quote, "I wish I could kill you. Oh my God." Imagine your parent telling you that. She said that she hadn't been allowed to play outside in somewhere between 2 and 4 years. She was also isolated for so long that she didn't know what deodorant was when the hospital workers offered it to her. The girl told nurses that she was sometimes allowed to bathe once a week and sometimes only once a month. So it appears that almost every single part of her life was controlled. Her access to the food and water, which was restricted. She was kept away from school and doctors. She was locked inside her room. And then on top of all of that, she was watched through a camera. Then on August 21st, after she had been vomiting for several days and had gone 4 or 5 days without eating, as I told you, that's when Walter finally decided to call 911. Which is shocking because he told her, "I wish I could kill you." But maybe he was thinking about himself like, well, if she actually dies, I might go to prison. So for my benefit, let me call 911. What if that's what he was thinking? As doctors worked to keep her alive, police began looking into how she had reached that condition in the first place. Initially, Walter and Melissa attempted to explain the girl's weight. Let's listen to this explanation. They attempted to explain away her weight by pointing to her autism, because of course. They claim that she didn't sleep enough and burned more calories than she consumed. There's no... Oh, I'm sorry. I have no words for the level of stupidity of that explanation. They also alleged that she had been mistreated and given sleeping pills while living with her biological mother. Yeah, hasn't she been with you for 5 years? So what does that have to do with the price of tea in Georgia? What? However, the teenager's medical condition told investigators that this simply wasn't a child who had trouble gaining weight. Then on August 27th, investigators searched the mobile home and found evidence that supported the girl's account of being physically locked inside her bedroom. And I bet you they went in there and they had tried to erase all of that. Inside a closet, police found a bolt lock with 3-inch screws. Those screws matched holes found on the outside of the girl's bedroom door. What did I tell you? So he had taken it off and he threw it in the closet, but they found it. And I mean, all they had to do was match the screws to the holes in her bedroom door and voila, So this confirmed to police that the lock had been attached where it could only be opened from the hallway. Investigators, check this out, also found photographs on the adult's devices showing the girl lying on a bare floor without a mattress, wearing only socks and underwear. Basically what she told them, there were pictures of that. Now ask yourself, why are these sons of buttholes taking pictures of this? A major break in the investigation came after police obtained a search warrant for Melissa's phone. On it, they found hundreds of messages exchanged between Melissa, Savanna, and Kayla that documented the abuse, the restrictions placed on the girl, and the way the adults talked about her. How much you want to bet that if they're all arrested, at least in the investigation phase, like when they're being questioned, how much you want to bet they all blame each other or they choose one person to blame? How much do you want to bet? In one message, Kayla told Melissa that the teenager had been eating too quickly, according to her. Quote, just so you know, the redacted victim's name here, was taking more than one bite at a time, and when Savanna confronted her, she continued to argue with her, so I used the belt. And then Melissa replied, quote, that's fine. So let me explain to you what happened here. The girl was beaten with a belt because she took more than one bite of food at a time. So instead of you know how people shovel food in their mouth because they're hungry? They wanted her to take one bite, chew, 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 swallow, take another bite. But she was starving, so she probably took one bite and another bite, and they were like, oh no, you don't eat like that. Whop, whop, whop with a belt. And then they text each other about it, and the stepmother could give a damn. As if that wasn't enough, Melissa had also sent messages instructing Savanna and Kayla to remove the girl's bed and limit her access to water. In another message, she told Savanna to, quote, slap her AZZ again. This is what she wrote. Now, what these messages were able to tell investigators was how much resentment the adults felt towards this teenager. Then at one point, after Kayla had only been responsible for her for only a few days, she wrote, quote, I only had her since Saturday and I'm so mad to the bone. I don't know how in the world you do it. Melissa responded with, quote, it's hard to be honest, and some days I don't want to anymore and wish she'd just go away. I'm just being honest. Savanna chimed in saying, quote, I just want to karate kick her dumb head. And Kayla replied, quote, I totally get that. In continuing the investigation, detectives learned that Melissa had an associate's degree in child development. That became especially important to investigators because Melissa had the educational background to understand the basic needs of a child and recognize that the girl's condition was dangerous. She had also made sure that her biological son received medical care while her stepdaughter went 5 years without seeing a doctor. On November 11th, 2025, police arrested Walter, Savanna, Melissa, and Kayla. During an early court proceeding, Court Commissioner Brian Figge said, quote, "Quite frankly, these allegations before the court today are incredibly disturbing, and it's alleged that the minor child was frankly living in a house of horrors." All 4 adults were charged with multiple felony counts of chronic child neglect, causing great bodily harm and emotional damage. Savanna and Kayla each faced 3 felony counts of chronic neglect of a child, causing great bodily harm, and 2 felony counts of chronic neglect, causing emotional damage. If convicted on every count, each could face more than 80 years in prison. Kayla was initially held in the Outagamie, I think that's how you say it, I'm not sure, county jail on a $150,000 cash bond. Assistant District Attorney Julie Duquesne said, quote, "I was able to observe photographs of her, and she looked like a skeleton. She was just literally skin and bones at 35 pounds. Attorney Duquesne said that there was no way the adults could have failed to see how close the girl was to dying. Quote, "It is really clear that they knew, unless frankly they were blind. Anyone would know that they're not healthy, that they're literally, quite literally on death's door. This is the most egregious case of child neglect I think I have ever seen in my nearly 25-year career." The cases against Walter, Savanna, and Kayla remained pending while Melissa's case moved forward first. On May 6, 2026, Melissa entered a no-contest plea to charges of chronic child neglect and false imprisonment. By entering that plea, Melissa didn't formally admit that she was guilty, but she accepted a conviction and allowed the judge to sentence her without the state having to prove the case before a jury. Her sentencing hearing was held on July 1st, 2026, before Judge Mitchell J. Metropolis. During the hearing, Attorney Duquesne presented dozens of photographs showing the girl's physical condition when she was rescued. The images were so disturbing that the judge compared them to photographs of Holocaust victims. Quote, "It was 80 years ago. My father served in World War II and had the unfortunate experience of viewing the Holocaust, and I'm sure he never anticipated that his son would have to view photographs that were similar to what he observed. But that is how significant and how deplorable these crimes were." The prosecution argued that Melissa wasn't a passive observer who had happened to live in the same home. According to Attorney Duquesne, she had actively participated in the abuse herself. She understood child development and she knew the girl was starving, and still she failed to get help. The prosecution also reminded the court that the girl had spent 1,940 days inside that home. During that time, she missed school, missed medical care, missed birthdays, missed relationships with relatives, and missed the normal experiences that children are supposed to have while growing up. Quote, "We can't go back and give her a hug or celebrate the birthday that didn't get celebrated. We can't go back and give her medical care for the 5 years that she didn't get any." The girl's maternal grandmother also submitted a statement that was read in court by investigator Alexis Wolfel. Quote, "I trusted the system. I believed she would be protected. That belief haunts me now, because while I was thinking she was okay, she was suffering. She was starving. She was alone." Melissa's defense attorney, Brittany Van Wright, didn't deny that the conditions inside the home were horrific. She acknowledged that Melissa's, quote, "actions at times were monstrous." At times? I mean, I guess the times that it wasn't monstrous was when she was asleep, but even then she let the girl stay like this, so even while she was asleep, these times were monstrous. What do you mean at times? Instead, Attorney Van Wright argued that Walter was the person in charge of the household and that Melissa had been dependent on him for her own survival. Now, didn't I tell you in the beginning that they were going to blame one person? I had a feeling they were going to blame Walter, but I wanted to keep that to myself. Didn't I tell you, though? According to the defense, Melissa was bedridden for much of the time that the girl lived in the home and rarely left her own room. Attorney Van Wright said that Melissa was so obese that she couldn't safely leave the trailer because the outside deck couldn't support her weight. So if you didn't get to see the pictures, that just explains to you how large this woman was while they're getting groceries to their house. And this child was starving to death. She weighed 5 pounds less than when she was, 4 years old? The defense described the condemned trailer as a household occupied by 4 adults who were clearly unable to care for themselves. So, you're telling me, this is what I'm saying, all of them relied on Walter, and he took care of all of them, and y'all stuffed your faces, and nobody took care of the most vulnerable of them. Because all y'all had to do was start exercising, really. Even if you did exercises in your bed, started moving your feet, tried to lose weight, etc., etc., this was not a condition where you're just like, well, only Walter could take care of us. This was a condition based on your choices. As opposed to this little girl, her condition was also based on your choices. She couldn't take care of herself. She had no access to food, credit card, a car to leave anywhere. She didn't have access to a phone, but guess what? Melissa had access to a phone. So even if she couldn't get up to move, she could have called somebody to help. She could have called 911 and say the girl was sick. She could have done a plethora of other things other than sit there and use that same phone to approve of whooping her butt, instruct others to remove the girl's bed, restrict her water, and tell Savanna to hit her again. Remember all of that, Melissa? Attorney Van Wright asked the judge to sentence Melissa to 4 years in prison, arguing that she should serve 1 day for every day the girl was in her care. Then, before the judge made his decision, the court played a recorded statement from the teenager. Speaking directly to Melissa, the girl explained what those years had done to her. Quote, "You really ruined my childhood, and it hurts that you did. You isolated me from my family, the only ones who actually cared. I really wished you would have been the mother figure for me, but instead you became a monster in my eyes." The teenager also asked a question that no child should ever have to ask the adults responsible for caring for her. Quote, "What did I do to deserve what you did? Honestly, I don't know how many times I asked you for help, and you guys pushed me away like it was nothing. You had the choice to help when I needed it, but instead you joined in on the abuse and neglect. So I hope you have fun in jail, because that's where you need to be." Melissa then gave a tearful statement before she was sentenced. Quote, "It was never my intention to hurt anyone." She also claimed that she hadn't understood how serious the situation was while she was living inside the home. How? Quote, "Sometimes when you're in the middle of a situation, you don't see how serious it is until you're removed from it. And I look back, I now understand the seriousness." You know, and now I look back at that statement and I understand bullshit. However, Judge Metropolis rejected the idea that Melissa had been unaware of the teenager's condition. I mean, anybody would have rejected that. He acknowledged that she may not have been the primary culprit, but she had absolute knowledge of what was happening and still failed to protect the girl. Judge Metropolis sentenced Melissa to 15 years in prison, followed by 10 years of extended supervision. As of this writing, the cases against Savanna and Kayla were still pending while they waited for future court dates. So I'm going to say for Savanna, Kayla, and Walter, since their cases are still ongoing, everything here is alleged because, again, say it with me now, I'm not trying to be sued. Walter's case also remained unsolved. He was scheduled to undergo a competency evaluation on July 7th, 2026, to determine whether he was mentally capable of standing trial, but so far I couldn't find the results of that evaluation. Meanwhile, the teenager has made significant progress in her physical recovery. Since her rescue, she's reportedly doubled her body weight and grew 3 inches. Medical workers describe the progress she made as remarkable, especially considering how close she had been to death. However, gaining weight couldn't return the 5 years that were taken from her. Attorney DeQuain warned that the teenager could live with physical and emotional consequences for the rest of her life because of the starvation, the untreated medical conditions, isolation, missed education, and psychological abuse she experienced over those 1,940 days. And that is the case, how these adults stuffed their face and left this poor child to nearly starve to death. What are your thoughts on this case? Personally, I'm sickened. I know you kept hearing me mention this throughout the episode, but I'm sickened that these 4 adults lived inside that trailer. These 4 adults had access to food. These 4 adults regularly had grocery deliveries come into the house, but the child living there was starving. The adults took pictures of her lying on the floor, watched her through a camera, probably while eating, and then joked about kicking her or wishing she would disappear. Then, as usual, like I said, during the trial, they blame everyone but themselves, and usually they stick to one person. They all turn. I don't understand why, first of all, people commit crimes, and second of all, you would commit a crime with other people, knowing that when the time comes, they're all going to blame you. Think about it this way. If you're a villain, and if you're committing crimes and doing murder and abusing children, then you're a villain. How many villains in movies do you see that stick together? Villains are not good people, so they're not going to have your back. And they did exactly what villains do. Blamed everybody but themselves. Suddenly, Melissa was too fat to even abuse the child. She didn't know what was happening in the house, and everything was her husband's fault because, she relies on him. So what about the text messages that we saw? Was that not you too? And I'm not calling her fat before somebody comes on me and talks about fat shaming, weight shaming, all this stuff. This is what they call them in the case. She was morbidly obese, and she literally said in her defense that she was too obese to do anything. So don't come for me. Because if you focus on that instead of focusing what these people were doing with the child, then you can just move right along from my podcast. And when the other ones go to trial, how much do you want to bet that they're going to continue blaming each other? They're all going to probably blame Walter, and Walter is going to say something like, well, I was never home. I never saw it. Just like that one episode, I can't even remember which one it was, where I think I remember. I'll put it in the show notes below if you want to listen to that case, where a little boy was being abused and the wife blamed the husband blamed the wife, saying that he was at work and he never saw, he never knew. They never ever know. If during editing, I remember, I'm going to post this in the show notes below so you can go back and listen to that episode if you're new here. But I have a feeling they're all going to blame Walter, and Walter's going to blame all of them and say that he was at work trying to take care of them because that's their defense. Like, I couldn't take care of myself. Walter had to do it. So he's going to say, well, I worked a lot and I didn't see nothing. It was all them. How much do you want to bet that's what's going to happen? Basically, no one is going to take accountability for it. And speaking of accountability, did you hear Melissa's statements and her idea of accountability? Sometimes when you're in the middle of a situation, you don't see how serious it is until you're removed from it. And I look back and I now understand the seriousness. Shut all the way up. The complete and utter bullcrap that came out of this woman's mouth. Can you believe this? And the defense just let it happen. Then the other thing that I noticed was, since 2020, a lot of abusers have used homeschool as a scapegoat to keep the kids home and away from prying eyes. This has happened in multiple of my cases. Have you noticed that? Now, I know this happened also before 2020, but doesn't it seem to have gone up since 2020? As a matter of fact, let me look up this statistic real quick. Hold on. Okay, and by the power of editing, I am back. So I didn't find a definitive statistics, but I did find an article that talked about the insights on the abuse of homeschooled children, and there are calls for legal reform to promote child safety. So I know in a previous episode that they were homeschooled since 2020 and they were being abused. They were calling for legal reform to promote child safety for these homeschooled children. So, they're still doing that. And I'll have the link to that article in the Patreon as part of the case extras. Anyway, so you heard my ranting and raving, and that's all I have to say about this. Now I want to hear from you. Do you believe that all four adults should all be held equally responsible for what happened to that teenager? Or do you think their individual roles should determine the punishment they receive? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're not ready to leave me just yet, then head on over to the Patreon because the after show for this episode is going to be waiting on you. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. This case, this after show, starts at a family wake where an argument between two cousins gets heated. Enough that one of them is told to leave. Everyone probably thought that was the end of it, but before the night was over, the family would be mourning another person. So join me in the Patreon at the $3 a month and above tier for this after show to find out what happened at this unfortunate wake. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. And if you want even more than that, then join the Patreon at the $5 or more tier or above for even more bonus episodes. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. So come and join the Lamb Fam and keep listening to me. And before you go, if this episode made you angry, as you can clearly hear it pissed me off, or made you think about how easily a child can disappear from the eyes of the people who might otherwise notice something is wrong, then please share this with someone. Send it to a friend who you think would be impacted by this story. Share it with someone who cares about protecting children. Or post it in your favorite true crime group so that this young girl's story can reach more people. Every share helps Love and Murder reach another listener. But most importantly, it helps make sure that the victims and survivors at the center of these cases are not forgotten. And that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for listening. And as I end each case, I want to remind you that it's all love and no murder, y'all. Don't forget to go ahead and share this case, and I will see you in the next episode. Unless, of course, you're part of the Lamb Fam, then your after show starts in 3, 2, 1.